Black CEO's family denied at five-star resort. 10 minutes later, the scandal goes viral. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. You people can't just walk in here and demand an oceanfront villa. The manager's voice cracked across the marble lobby like a champagne glass shattering mid-toast. Every head turned. He stood rigid in a tailored gray suit, finger pointed inches from the woman's face, her blue floral dress bright against the cream and gold luxury of the five-star resort. Crystal chandeliers glowed above them. Polished floors reflected the scene like a courtroom spotlight. Beside her, two small children froze. The little girl's curls trembled as she looked up at her mother. The boy clutched the hem of his father's navy polo, confusion flooding his eyes. Behind them stood the man who hadn't said a word. Tall, still, controlled. He wasn't dressed like money. No watch flashing under the lights. No designer logos announcing power. Just dark jeans. Clean sneakers. Calm posture. But his eyes were sharp. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now back to Marcus. Marcus Reed didn't blink. The manager scoffed, waving a black credit card between two fingers like it was counterfeit evidence. This needs verification. We don't just hand over premium villas to anyone who walks in. Anyone. The word lingered longer than it should have. Behind the curved marble desk, a young receptionist in a teal uniform stiffened. Her name tag read Emily. She opened her mouth slightly, then closed it. The lobby wasn't loud anymore. It was charged. A couple near the lounge chairs whispered. A man in linen shorts smirked, glancing at Marcus like he'd already decided the story. Marcus stepped forward, not aggressively, not defensively, just enough to place himself between the pointed finger and his family. "We have a confirmed reservation," his wife said softly. The manager laughed. Too loud. "Sir," he said, ignoring her entirely, "I suggest you take your family somewhere more appropriate." The boy looked up. "Dad, are we in trouble that did it?" Not the insult. Not the crowd. Not the humiliation unfolding under crystal light. That question. Marcus crouched slightly, lowering himself to eye level. "No," he said evenly. "We're exactly where we're supposed to be." He rose again.
Slow breath in.
He studied the manager's name tag. Daniel Harper. He glanced at the security camera mounted above the concierge archway. Then at the receptionist. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Daniel snapped his fingers toward security standing near the entrance. "Escort them out."
A hand moved toward Marcus's shoulder.
And for just a fraction of a second, the past flickered. 20 years earlier, a different hotel, a different lobby.
Same tone. Same finger.
He had left quietly then. He did not move now. The air thickened.
Security hesitated.
Marcus reached into his pocket. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Deliberately. And the lobby, once certain of its hierarchy, began almost imperceptibly to shift. Security's hand hovered near Marcus's shoulder, close enough to signal authority, not yet close enough to justify force. "Sir," the guard said carefully, "we're going to need you to step outside while this is sorted." Sorted. The word tried to make humiliation sound procedural. Marcus didn't look at the guard. He looked at Daniel Harper. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks as if he'd just handled a minor inconvenience instead of detonating a family's dignity in the middle of a five-star lobby. "We reserve the right to refuse service. Daniel added louder now, performing for the onlookers. And this property maintains standards. Standards. The chandelier light flickered softly across the marble floors. Somewhere behind them, a fountain trickled artificial calm layered over real tension. Marcus exhaled once.
Slow.
Measured. He noticed everything. The way Emily at the desk kept glancing at her screen. The way two guests near the bar had lifted their phones just slightly, not filming yet, but ready. The way Daniel's confidence wasn't anger. It was assumption. Marcus stepped half an inch closer, enough to remove space, not enough to escalate. My name, he said evenly, is Marcus Reed. Daniel didn't react. Congratulations, he replied flatly. You'll need to take that name somewhere else. Behind Marcus, his wife shifted her weight. Not afraid, not shrinking, but calculating. She rested a hand on their daughter's shoulder. The girl leaned into her. The boy didn't move. He stared at the security badge. Marcus remembered that stare. 22 years ago, in a lobby not unlike this one, he had stared at another badge. Another uniform. Another man telling him he didn't fit the image. He had walked out then. He built something after that. Something very specific. Emily's fingers finally moved on the keyboard. Click! Click! Her eyes widened just slightly. Daniel noticed. What is it? He snapped under his breath. Nothing, she replied too quickly. Marcus saw it. The crack. Sir, the guard tried again, softer now. Let's just step outside. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. Not flashy. No raised voice. Just intent. Daniel scoffed. Calling someone won't change policy. Marcus looked at the screen, then back at him. No, he said calmly. But it will clarify ownership. Daniel laughed once sharp and dismissive. Ownership, he repeated. Of what Marcus didn't answer immediately. He tapped one contact. The phone rang once. Twice. Then a voice on the other end answered without hesitation. Mr. Reed. The lobby shifted. Not dramatically. Not yet. But something invisible had just tilted.
Marcus turned slightly so Daniel could hear.
Activate the acquisition file, he said, and loop in the board. Silence on the other end lasted less than a second. Understood, the voice replied. Going live now? Daniel's smirk faltered, not because he understood, but because he suddenly wasn't sure he did.
And for the first time since he'd pointed that finger, he stopped talking.
Daniel's phone buzzed first.
A sharp, invasive vibration against polished wood.
He glanced down, instinctively annoyed more than concerned. The screen lit up. INTERNALALART Executive Board Session initiated.
His jaw tightened.
That's not possible, he muttered almost to himself. Behind the desk, Emily's monitor refreshed again. This time, the change was visible. A banner appeared across the reservation system in bold internal blue ownership, tier access detected. Her breathing shifted.
Sir, she began carefully.
Daniel cut her off without looking. I told you to stay out of this. Marcus hadn't moved. He hadn't raised his voice. He simply stood there, phone lowered now, watching the moment unfold like a man who had already seen the ending. A guest near the bar finally lifted his phone higher. Not subtly anymore. Recording. Another followed. A whisper passed through the marble air. Is this real? Did he say ownership? Daniel straightened his tie, a reflex of control. You're attempting to intimidate staff, he said louder again, reclaiming performance mode. This is harassment. Marcus tilted his head slightly. No, he replied evenly. This is documentation. The word landed differently. Security shifted his stance. Not aggressive now. Uncertain. Emily swallowed and turned her screen slightly toward Daniel. He leaned in, and for the first time, color drained. The system profile had expanded. Marcus Reed, majority stakeholder, 51% parent company, Horizon Coastal Holdings, access level executive override. Daniel blinked once. Then again, he started. His voice didn't finish the sentence, because at that exact moment, his access badge at his waist emitted a short mechanical chirp. A notification flashed on his own device. Compliance review initiated pending administrative action. The lobby heard it. That tiny digital sound carried louder than any shout he'd made earlier. Marcus finally stepped closer to the desk. Not aggressively, not triumphantly, simply reclaiming space. "You called security," he said calmly, his voice no longer quiet, just clear. "On a family that owns this resort." The room stilled. Even the fountain seemed to fade. Daniel's mouth opened, searching for authority that had already evaporated.
This has to be some mistake. Marcus shook his head once.
"No." The mistake, he said, was assuming we didn't belong. Behind him, his son stood straighter. His daughter squeezed her mother's hand but didn't look down anymore. Phones were fully raised now. One screen already showed comments pouring in. 5-star sort ownership exposed resort scandal, Emily's system chimed again. Live compliance review recording enabled. Daniel looked around, not at Marcus, at the guests, at the cameras, at the guard who was no longer touching anyone. The power dynamic had not exploded. It had inverted, quietly. And Daniel Harper, who had controlled the lobby 10 minutes ago with a pointed finger, now couldn't even control his breathing. Daniel stepped back from the desk as if distance might undo what the screen had just declared. "This is a system error," he said quickly. Too quickly. "Emily, refresh it." She did. The banner remained. Majority stakeholder executive override. The words did not flicker. They did not soften. They held. Around the lobby, the silence shifted into something sharper. Recognition. A woman near the lounge chairs lowered her sunglasses. "Wait, I've seen him before." A man beside her snapped his fingers. "Forbes cover. Last year?" Daniel's composure cracked at the edges. Security cleared his throat and stepped away from Marcus entirely.
Sir, the guard said, voice respectful. Now I wasn't aware.
Marcus gave him a small nod. Not forgiveness. Not anger. Just acknowledgement. "It's not your fault," he said calmly. "You responded to instruction." Daniel's phone buzzed again. This time, it didn't stop. One notification after another stacked across his screen. Board member, incoming call, regional director, urgent corporate compliance. Immediate response required. His hands trembled barely, but enough. Across the lobby, one of the guests turned her phone so others could see. The video was already live. Comments flooded in faster than they could be read. "Is this happening right now?" He tried to throw out the owner. "This is profiling?" 100%. The hashtag resort scandal climbed in real time. Marcus's wife stepped forward now, not behind him, not shielded. Beside him. Her posture straightened under the chandelier light. "You embarrassed our children," she said quietly to Daniel. "No yelling. No drama. Just truth." Daniel opened his mouth to respond, perhaps to apologize, perhaps to defend himself, but another sound interrupted him. A sharp electronic tone from the desk terminal. Emily stared at her screen.
Sir, she whispered.
Daniel didn't want to look. But he did. It did. Across the system dashboard, a new line appeared under his profile. Managerial access, suspended pending investigation. The security badge at his waist blinked red. Once. Twice. Then locked. A soft, mechanical click. Guests inhaled collectively. Marcus stepped closer to the counter, resting his hand lightly against the cool marble surface. "You invoked standards," he said evenly. "Let's talk about them." Daniel's voice dropped, stripped of performance now. "I didn't know." Marcus studied him. "That's the problem," he replied. A notification tone echoed again, this time from the large digital display behind the concierge desk. Corporate seal. Live internal memo. Emergency statement Horizon Coastal Holdings. The lobby watched as the message scrolled into view. Daniel Harper felt the ground shift beneath a floor that hadn't moved. 10 minutes earlier, he had commanded the room with a pointed finger. Now, he couldn't command his own access card. And Marcus Reed, who had never raised his voice once, was no longer simply present in the lobby. He owned it. The corporate seal on the screen finished scrolling. Silence followed, not empty, but heavy. Intentional. Daniel swallowed. This doesn't need to become public, he said, carefully lowering his voice now as if volume could shrink visibility. We can resolve this internally. Internally. Marcus almost smiled. Was it internal? He asked calmly. When you tried to escort my children out, Daniel's eyes flicked to the phones around them. More screens were visible now. Angles from the bar, from the lounge chairs, from near the entrance. One guest read aloud from her screen. 5-star resort profiles, black family owner steps in. It's already on X. Another voice chimed in. 200,000 views. Daniel's breath shortened. This is being taken out of context, he said quickly. We were verifying a booking. Marcus turned slightly so the crowd could see him clearly, not for performance, but for clarity. Verification, he repeated. You didn't verify the name. He gestured toward Emily's screen. You verified appearance. The words didn't rise. They landed. Daniel tried one more angle. If we offended you, I apologize. The apology felt rehearsed. Detached from action. Marcus looked at his son. Did he apologize when he told us to leave the boy? Asked quietly. Daniel didn't answer. Because he couldn't. Another alert chimed, this time from the large display again. Regional director joining live review. Emily stepped back from the desk entirely now. The system interface shifted to split-screen mode. On one side, the lobby camera feed live. On the other, a corporate compliance window opening in real time.
Daniel stared at it like it might blink away.
It didn't.
Security removed his earpiece slowly.
Sir? The guard said to Marcus, voice respectful. Now I'd like to apologize as well.
Marcus gave him a steady look.
Accountability, he said quietly, belongs where authority began. Daniel's phone rang again.
He finally answered.
Yes, he said, trying to steady his tone. I can explain. A voice on the other end cut him off. Sharp. Executive. Step away from the desk, Daniel. The color left his face. This is disproportionate, Daniel whispered into the phone. No, the voice replied. This is documented. The call ended. Daniel lowered the phone slowly. Around him, the guests were no longer whispering. They were watching. Marcus stepped fully beside his wife now. Shoulder to shoulder. Not victorious. Not gloating. Present. You believed we didn't belong here, Marcus said evenly, because we didn't match the image in your head. Daniel said nothing. You were wrong, Marcus continued. But that's not the worst part. He paused. The lobby leaned in. The worst part, he said, is that my children almost believed you, and that more than ownership, more than authority, more than access, was the moment that broke the room. The silence after Marcus's last sentence did not fade. It thickened. Daniel looked at the children, really looked at them this time. The boy no longer stared at the badge. He stared at him. And Daniel, for the first time since this began, looked small. The large display behind the desk shifted again. Corporate compliance interim action authorized. A new voice filled the lobby speakers, calm executive, unmistakably in control. This is Horizon Coastal Holdings. We are conducting a live review of the incident that occurred at 4:12 p.m. local time. Guests turned toward the ceiling speakers. Daniel didn't. He couldn't. The voice continued. Preliminary findings indicate a failure to follow ownership verification protocol and a breach of guest conduct standards. Daniel whispered. This is insane. Marcus remained still. He wasn't enjoying this. He was finishing it. Emily's terminal flashed another line: managerial authority revoked, effective immediately. Daniel's badge emitted a longer tone this time. Red. Locked. Access denied. He instinctively tried to swipe it against the side panel behind the desk. Nothing.
Security stepped slightly forward, not toward Marcus.
Toward Daniel. A subtle shift in alignment. The same guard who had been ready to escort a family out now stood ready to ensure policy was followed correctly. Daniel exhaled sharply. You're making a spectacle, he said to Marcus, desperation creeping in. This could have been handled privately. Marcus finally stepped around the desk, not to invade space, to stand where Daniel had stood, behind the marble counter, the symbolic center of authority. You made it public, Marcus replied calmly. The moment you pointed. Phones captured that line instantly.
Someone whispered, that's the quote.
The corporate voice returned over the speakers. Pending full investigation, Daniel Harper is relieved of his managerial duties. Interim leadership will be assigned immediately. A soft ripple moved through the crowd. Not applause. Recognition. Daniel looked as if the air had been pulled from the room. This isn't fair, he said, barely audible. Marcus studied him. Fair, he replied quietly, would have been treating my family like guests. The screen behind them refreshed once more. Executive oversight activated. Marcus turned to Emily. Continue check-in, he said gently. Her hands trembled not from fear but from the weight of the moment. Yes, sir. She began typing again. The same reservation. The same villa. Now without resistance. Daniel stood motionless as security approached him respectfully but firmly. Sir, the guard said, I'll need your office key. 10 minutes ago, Daniel had controlled the room with a finger. Now, he surrendered a key. Marcus stepped back beside his wife and children. Not triumphant. Not loud. Just present. And the lobby, once a stage for humiliation, had become a courtroom where standards were no longer assumed. They were enforced.
Security didn't rush Daniel.
They didn't need to. The badge at his waist was already useless. The authority in his voice already gone. He removed the office key slowly and placed it on the marble counter, the same counter he had guarded like a gatekeeper 10 minutes earlier.
A small metallic sound.
Final. Guests didn't clap this time. They watched.
Because this wasn't spectacle anymore.
It was consequence. Marcus stood beside his family as Emily finished processing the check-in. The printer hummed softly, producing keycards that should have been handed over without incident from the start. She slid them across the counter carefully. Oceanfront Villa, she said, voice steady now. Welcome to Horizon Coastal Resort. The words landed differently than before. Marcus accepted the cards. Thank you, he replied. Not sarcastic. Not sharp. Measured. Behind them, phones were still raised. Comments continued to explode across screens. Owner handled it calmly. This is how you respond. He never yelled once. The narrative had shifted entirely. Daniel, now standing off to the side with security, looked toward Marcus one last time. I didn't mean, he began. Marcus stopped him gently. Intent doesn't erase impact, he said. Another line captured. Another silence. The corporate voice returned briefly over the speakers. A full review of guest treatment protocols will be conducted. Diversity and bias training will be mandatory across all properties. Murmurs of approval rippled through the lobby, not because someone had been removed, but because something had been acknowledged. Marcus knelt down in front of his children. We didn't do anything wrong, he told them quietly. His son nodded. His daughter asked, Are we still staying? Marcus smiled faintly. Yes, he said. Because we belong anywhere we choose to be. He stood again and faced the lobby, the chandeliers, the cameras, the guests who had witnessed both sides of power in less than 15 minutes. "I'll raise my voice," he said calmly, meeting Daniel's eyes one final time. "I raise the standard. No applause. No theatrics. Just understanding." And as Marcus Reed walked his family toward the oceanfront elevators, the hashtags continued climbing. Resort scandal, ownership exposed, silent power, the lobby remained exactly where it had always been. But the hierarchy inside it had changed. The elevator doors closed behind Marcus and his family with a soft hydraulic hush. The lobby did not exhale. It recalibrated. Guests remained where they stood, replaying the last 15 minutes in their minds, the pointed finger, the raised voice, the quiet inversion of power. Daniel was escorted toward the side corridor, not in handcuffs, not publicly humiliated, just removed. The way systems remove access. Cleanly. At the front desk, Emily straightened her posture. The teal of her uniform suddenly felt heavier, not as decoration, but as responsibility. Her screen displayed a final internal update: interim general manager assigned effective immediately. Another message followed. All staff mandatory conduct review meeting at 6:00 p.m. The security guard who had first approached Marcus remained by the entrance. He wasn't watching the doors anymore. He was watching the desk. Watching himself. Near the lounge, the woman who had first recognized Marcus lowered her phone and said quietly to the man beside her, "He never once lost control." The man nodded. That's why he won. On social media, the video crossed 500,000 views. Clips of Daniel's pointed finger looped beside Marcus's calm response. Side by side. Contrast sells, but dignity sustains. Back at the desk, Emily addressed the remaining guests with new steadiness. "Thank you for your patience," she said. "We are fully operational." The phrase sounded different now. Operational didn't mean control. It meant accountability. A corporate SUV pulled up outside the glass entrance. Two individuals in dark suits stepped out, regional oversight. They didn't rush in. They walked. Deliberate. Measured. The same pace Marcus had maintained from the beginning. Inside the elevator ascending toward the oceanfront level, Marcus's wife leaned slightly into him. "You could have destroyed him," she said quietly. Marcus kept his eyes forward. "I didn't need to," he replied. The elevator doors opened to a panoramic view of blue water and late afternoon light. Below, the lobby continued functioning. Check-ins resumed. Conversations restarted. But something subtle had shifted beneath the marble and glass.
Standards were no longer assumed by appearance.
They were enforced by principle. And while the internet debated, commented, analyzed, one truth remained untouched: power had not shouted. It had stood still and made the room move around it. Evening settled over the resort like nothing had happened. The ocean reflected gold. The chandeliers still shimmered. Valets still opened car doors with rehearsed smiles. From the outside horizon, coastal resort remained flawless.
Inside, it had been reset.
In the oceanfront villa, Marcus stood on the balcony, the sound of waves steady and indifferent below. His children were already racing across the living room, the earlier tension dissolving into laughter. His wife stepped beside him. "They'll remember this," she said quietly. Marcus nodded once. "Yes," he replied, "but not the way you think." He didn't look angry. He looked resolved. "They won't remember being told to leave," he continued. "They'll remember that we stayed." Down in the lobby, the interim manager gathered staff in a closed-door briefing. Compliance officers reviewed footage. Statements were documented. Language was analyzed. Not to punish emotion, to correct culture. The viral clip passed 1 million views before sunset. Commentators debated policy. Influencers reposted the quote. News outlets requested statements. Marcus declined interviews. He issued one written response instead: every guest deserves dignity before verification. Standards must protect people, not profile them. Short. measured, unshakable. In the villa, his daughter stepped onto the balcony holding one of the key cards. "Dad?" she asked. "Why did he think we didn't belong?" Marcus crouched again eye level. "Sometimes," he said gently, "people confuse familiarity with fairness." She frowned slightly.
So what do we do? Marcus glanced toward the horizon.
"We build places," he said, "where that confusion doesn't survive." Below them, the lobby doors opened and closed as they always had. Guests checked in. Luggage rolled across marble. But every employee who stood behind that desk now understood something that couldn't be trained in a manual. Authority is not volume. Ownership is not appearance. And dignity is not negotiable. Marcus stepped back inside, closing the balcony door softly behind him. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand applause. He didn't celebrate a man losing a job. He raised the standard, and the building adjusted. It was just past sunset when Marcus returned to the lobby alone. Not for inspection. Not for attention. For closure. The chandeliers glowed softer now, casting warm reflections across the marble floor that had witnessed everything the day before. Conversations hummed at a normal volume. Luggage wheels rolled smoothly toward elevators. On the surface, nothing had changed. Underneath everything had. The interim manager stood behind the desk, posture balanced, voice calm, movements deliberate. When she saw Marcus approach, she didn't stiffen. She acknowledged. "Good evening, Mr. Reed." "Good evening," he replied. No tension. No performance. Just professionalism. That was the standard. Near the concierge stand, Emily was assisting a couple checking in, an older black couple dressed casually holding hands. The woman laughed at something Emily said. Marcus noticed it. The ease. The absence of suspicion. He didn't interrupt. He didn't need to. A small brass plaque had been placed discreetly beside the front desk that afternoon. Temporary pending permanent revision. Horizon Coastal Commitment, every guest receives dignity before verification. Not flashy. Not PR heavy. Just clear. Marcus walked toward the center of the lobby, the exact place Daniel had stood when he pointed. He paused there briefly. Memory doesn't vanish overnight. It settles. Security approached the same guard from before. "Sir," he said respectfully, "I wanted to say I appreciate how you handled it." Marcus studied him. "You followed instruction," he replied. "Now follow judgment." The guard nodded slowly, understanding. Understood. Outside the glass entrance, the ocean reflected moonlight. Guests strolled in and out, unaware of the recalibration that had occurred beneath their vacation. Marcus turned as his wife joined him, their children a few steps behind. "You came back down?" she observed. "I wanted to see it," he said. And he looked around the lobby once more. "I don't see fear," he replied. "I see awareness." That mattered more. His daughter walked up beside him. "Is it fixed?" she asked. Marcus crouched slightly again, eye level as always. "It's better," he said. "And better is how change starts." She nodded, satisfied. As the family walked toward the elevators, no one stared. No one whispered. No one questioned. The lobby didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a standard had been set and understood. Marcus didn't raise his voice. He didn't demand recognition. He didn't celebrate a downfall. He corrected a direction. And in doing so, he ensured that the next family who walked through those doors wouldn't have to prove they belonged. Because belonging was no longer assumed. It was protected. The following week, Horizon Coastal Holdings did something unusual. They didn't bury the incident in legal language. They studied it. At corporate headquarters, a full playback session was scheduled not for PER, not for damage control, but for executive reflection. Senior leadership, property managers, and department heads logged in from across the country. The screen opened with the first frame of the lobby confrontation. The pointed finger. The phrase "you people can't just walk in here," the chairwoman paused the video. "Freeze it there," she said. No one spoke, because the mistake wasn't subtle. It was visible. Marcus sat at the far end of the conference table, not at the head. He hadn't demanded this session. He had requested it. "Walk me through the failure point," he said calmly. A regional manager cleared his throat. "Escalation without verification." "Earlier," Marcus replied. Silence. Another executive leaned forward. "Language bias. Assumption based on appearance." Marcus nodded once.
That's the fracture, he said.
"Not policy. Perception." Back at the resort, Emily attended her first revised training module. The room wasn't defensive. It was reflective.
Slides no longer focused only on luxury metrics revenue per room client acquisition premium conversion.
They focused on dignity metrics, guest tone analysis, bias, interruption, strategies, chain of command accountability. One slide read authority is responsibility, not immunity. Employees wrote it down. Meanwhile, Daniel Harper packed his office in quiet anonymity. No dramatic escort. No public shaming. Just a cardboard box.
Consequences don't need volume.
They need clarity. Outside, online discourse shifted tone. The outrage phase passed. Now came commentary. Leadership blogs praised Marcus's composure. Diversity advocates highlighted the child's question as the emotional pivot. Hospitality analysts cited the incident as a modern leadership example. But Marcus avoided every interview request. Instead, Horizon released a short internal video recorded simply no music, no cinematic framing. Marcus stood in an empty lobby before opening hours. "Standards are tested when we think no one important is watching," he said to the camera. "The truth is, someone always is." The video ended there. No branding. No applause. Just a reminder. At the resort, guests continued arriving, some aware of the viral moment, others blissfully unaware. A black family checked in that afternoon, casual clothes, confident posture. Emily smiled without hesitation. "Welcome to Horizon Coastal Resort." No pause. No suspicion. No coded language. Upstairs in the villa, Marcus watched his children run toward the shoreline again, fearless in their joy. His wife joined him, slipping her hand into his. "You changed the culture," she said softly. Marcus shook his head. "I exposed it," he replied. "They changed it." The ocean kept moving. The building kept standing. But the invisible architecture expectation tone reflex had been reinforced. Because dignity doesn't demand dominance. It demands consistency. And this time, consistency won. A month later, the video was no longer trending. It didn't need to be. What mattered had already settled. At Horizon Coastal properties across the country, subtle changes had taken root. Managers paused longer before escalating. Security verified twice before approaching. Front desk staff introduced themselves before questioning anyone else. The script had shifted. Not outwardly. Internally. At the flagship resort, the brass plaque near the desk had been replaced with something permanent, etched into marble instead of mounted as a response. Dignity before verification. Always. Guests walked past it without fanfare, but staff read it every shift. Marcus returned to the property quietly, not announced, not scheduled 6 weeks after the incident. No press. No board call. Just a father with a weekend free. The lobby greeted him like it should have the first time. Professional. Calm. Uncomplicated. A new general manager stepped forward, composed, attentive, trained differently. "Welcome back, Mr. Reed." Marcus nodded. "Thank you." No tension lingered in the air now. No hesitation in posture. The system had learned.
Not because it feared him, because it had been forced to look at itself.
Near the concierge stand, a teenage employee assisted a young black couple holding a baby. The employee leaned slightly forward, smiling, explaining villa options without suspicion or coded tone. The father of the baby wore slides and a graphic t-shirt. No one questioned him. Marcus watched quietly from across the lobby. This was the real metric. Not view counts. Not compliance reports. Behavior. His daughter tugged at his sleeve. "Is this the place?" she asked. Marcus smiled. "It's one of them," he said. They walked toward the elevators together, not to reclaim anything, not to prove anything. Just to stay. Upstairs in the oceanfront villa, the afternoon light poured through wide windows. The waves moved in the same rhythm as they had that first day. His son sat at the balcony railing, thoughtful. "Dad," he said slowly, "if you didn't own it, what would have happened?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He joined him at the railing. "Then we would have left," he said honestly. His son frowned. "That's not fair." Marcus nodded. "It isn't." Silence stretched between them, filled only by the sound of water. "But fairness isn't automatic," Marcus continued. "It's built. And when you can build it, you do." Downstairs, the lobby camera captured another routine check-in. A family entered. No one pointed. No one questioned. They were welcomed. Weeks later, Horizon Coastal released an annual impact report. Not centered on revenue. Centered on reform. Guest satisfaction metrics improved. Internal complaints dropped. Employee reporting increased not because problems grew, but because silence shrank. The board chair summarized it in one sentence: accountability changed culture. Marcus declined public recognition for it. He didn't need his name on the reform. He needed the reform to exist. On their final evening of that return visit, the family stood together at the shoreline. The sky burned orange, then softened into indigo. His wife slipped her hand into his again. "You didn't destroy anything," she said quietly. Marcus looked at the building behind them, lit windows, moving silhouettes, life continuing. "No," he replied. "I corrected it." His daughter picked up a shell and held it up proudly. "Look what I found." Marcus knelt down, smiling. "See?" he said gently. "Sometimes you find something valuable in places that didn't expect you." The waves rolled in again. Unbothered. Steady. Back in the lobby, the plaque remained fixed in marble. Not as a reminder of scandal. As a declaration of standard. Marcus never raised his voice. He never demanded spectacle. He didn't celebrate someone's fall. He insisted on alignment. And alignment, once forced into light, rarely returns to shadow. Because belonging is not granted by approval. It is recognized by principle. And when principle leads, the building adjusts. The system recalibrates. The culture evolves. Marcus Reed didn't win a confrontation. He shifted a structure. And the next family who walked through those glass doors didn't have to prove they belonged. They simply did.